All right. On today's episode, we're going to show you how to elevate your game with the traditional dove breast wrapped in bacon. We're going to kick it up doing 3 key things to it so that it'll be juicier, more flavorful, and just a step above everybody else. Stay tuned. Let me get set up, and we're going to cook some dove.
All right, people, while we're here getting our dove breast out of the freezer bag and going to give it a quick rinse, I want to talk about the 3 key points that will up your game on your traditional dove breast recipe. First thing we're going to do is put the dove in a basic salt water brine. We're going to mix it with basically salt and sugar. And the second key item to do is actually when you marinate the dove breast with olive oil and all the seasonings, make sure you refrigerate it and leave it in overnight. That way it can absorb the most flavor with the seasonings you decide to put in there. With the third and final key point is I'm using ground Guajillo pepper in this recipe. Guajillo pepper is delicious. It's nice. So I figured I'd give it a shot and add it. Stay tuned till the end and you'll figure out which one of these key items didn't work.
All right, guys. Here we have the dove, the breast. It's been in a brine. As you can see, it doesn't look any different, but what we have in there is salt, sugar, and water. So we're going to rinse this off, and then we're going to mix it in with some of our ingredients, and we'll cover that in just a minute. Let me go rinse this off. All right, so now that I rinsed off the dove breast, what I'm going to do is put it on a towel to pat it dry so that we can get the oil and the seasonings on it. That's the next step. So they do have a little firm texture to it now that I'm holding it and pulled it out from the water. The salt has firmed up the flesh just a little bit. The reason why I'm taking the extra liquid off the dove is so that the oil can stick and so it doesn't dilute any of the seasoning, so everything gets to stick with the oil onto the breast. Now we're going to get into mixing the seasonings. We're going to add some oil. I use sea salt, not even a 1/4 teaspoon. Black pepper, same thing, less than a 1/4 teaspoon. Now this is granulated garlic. That's about half a teaspoon. And this is granulated onion. That's the same thing. And I'm actually adding a little bit of smoked paprika. So this is my basic mix. Oh, there is one other thing I add. Let me find that. And for me, I like thyme leaves. Normally, I would go a little bit more salt as well, but since I already put the dove breast in a brine, I didn't add the normal amount of salt that I would add to this. Now we let it sit. So now what you want to do, after the bacon gets to room temperature, you want to stretch it. It's harder to do when the mussels are cold. I'm going to slice each of these into 4 pieces. So I'm going to take the dove. This was the skin side. This was the bone side. I've always wrapped it with the bone side with the folds on the bottom. And then I stick it on the rack. I put it on the rack so that it has air and it can crisp up on both sides. I generally don't need a toothpick if I'm doing it this way. Right there. One last tender, so I'm going to put it all together. Actually, I'm going to leave that aside. And I'm going to take a nicer piece from this one. It all gets wrapped up. We are going to add Guajillo pepper. An oven takes about 30 minutes for it to preheat. During that time, I like to leave my dove that I just finished seasoning and that I wrapped in bacon. I like to rest in the room temperature so that it just forms a skin. It just helps everything to bind together. I have no idea what that was. Okay, looks like the oven's up to temperature, and we're going to take our tray and put it in the oven. I put it in the middle of the oven, and it's going to be in there for about 25 minutes. I want to try and get the bacon crispy, but yet keep the internal temperature of the dove at about 130 degrees. So I'm going to try and keep it on the rare side. All right, so I want to recap. I did a couple things that I don't normally do to traditional dove wrapped in bacon. The Guajillo pepper and the brine. Those are the 2 things that I tried new. I like to go over the pros and cons of both. What I found after, as you can see, my son and I went after the plate. It's still by all means very good and tasty, but these are my notes that I've discovered. So the brine, I actually liked it because it added a lot of moisture and the dove did not dry out when I was baking it. And I had actually, you'll see the clips that I actually put it back in the oven to darken up because the bacon was not done enough. It was still a little chewy on the very first one that I cut apart. So I wound up putting it back in. All said and done, the dove was in there for about, I'd say 22 minutes. Interior temperature of the dove was about 155 degrees. I wanted to pull it out at 130. So with that being said, the dove was definitely moist. Second thing that I did, I used the Guajillo pepper. I'm a big Guajillo pepper fan. I love the flavor. It's good. It's unique. A little bit of spicy. But for me, on the doves wrapped in bacon, it was a fail because the Guajillo and the actual bacon itself to me did not marry well. The flavors just kind of offset each other. It just wasn't a good marriage. It wasn't made in heaven, to put it that way. Yeah, remember, it's September. Go out in the field, go get yourself some doves, and try wrapping it in bacon. As always, bacon makes it delicious. Here it is. Thank you. Stay tuned. This is what's going to be happening on the next episode. All right. Next episode, we're going to be doing Canadian Goose breakfast sausage patties. We're going to be mixing it with a little bit of pork fat, and having some breakfast. Looking forward to it. Hope we see you on the next one. Thank you.